You have no limitations in potential, yet we have functionally adopted this as who we are. And it has worked to some degree. Some of us have adopted a more useful sense of self. Some of us more difficult, have more problems with who we are. But we've adopted a personality. We think we are that. And if someone asks who you are, you may not say, I'm a body, but you might say, I'm a man, I'm an American, I am X amount of pounds. Usually I don't say that. But it's this tight little package. When in a deeper exploration, you realize that if God could be everywhere, all of it could be everywhere, it is right there in you. If the first statement that all of God is everywhere, then all of God is everywhere as you. This, the talk today, if you didn't know it, is what to do until the Messiah comes. And I've researched what they say the Messiah is. The Messiah comes from the Jewish tradition, and basically the original meaning was that they would have a king who would come and restore the kingdom of Israel and would defeat the foreign occupiers of their land. And you may or may not know this, but the 5 empires essentially dominated Palestine, and they successively were hoping for a Messiah to come along. That was true when the Romans were there, when Jesus was alive, and they were looking for a Messiah, which is how it started. That title began to get stuck to Jesus. But really what it meant was the anointed one, meaning a king person, not a spiritual leader. And then it was that the Christians kind of took that and they expanded the idea of the Messiah, and they used the word Christ meaning the anointed one also, and now it has evolved into what we think of him as a guy who comes to save the world, who saves us from our sin, and is a particular aspect of God known as the Son, and as the Son, he is uniquely different from us. That's a Christian tradition. It's not my tradition, and it is not one that I could accept when I was 16 years old, which, oddly enough, came to me after reading the New Testament, that I didn't really think Jesus was the only Son of God. In some uniquely different way, he is the Son of God, but what they're missing, I think, in the whole process, and it's there in the Scriptures, is that Jesus is more the great example than the great exception. Now, I have qualms with that because he was different enough for me to be different in kind, so I understand why they would say that. But the idea is that the potential within each person has always been there. You have the same potential in you. This is a theological statement and a statement of faith, that essentially within you have the same potential that Jesus had. Because his was manifested, he looked so radically different, but we all have that potential. And what is that potential? That's something worth really investigating. Last week, as you know, I talked a bit about the process of living and dying, and it's saying that you're bracketed on one side of your life by a birth and by the backside by death, and both seem inescapable if you're going to be on earth. But it isn't the totality of who you are. The body does this. As the Buddhists would say, all things compounded will be broken apart. So your body is a compound of elements, and at some point it will break apart. But the part of you that is not compounded, the part of you that is all of the all, is part of the all. When you say it's part of the all, it almost diminishes it. It's kind of like saying you're a scoop of dirt out of the earth. It doesn't seem to have the full potential meaning of what it is to have the allness in you as you. Because let's talk about allness. Let's talk about the oneness, talk about the presence. I'm not a big fan of the word God, as you probably have discerned, because when God, the 3-letter word comes up, you see a person. And this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is primary and that we have only really, in the New Thought movement and in some of the more mystical traditions, have come to realize that the word God, or that presence, is not confined to any image that we can come up with. That it is so broad, so expansive, that it is almost indefinable. We can talk about attributes of that, but we can't talk about the whole of it very well because we don't have the language for it. Even the scope of our own consciousness at this level probably can't process what that really means. But let's work on that for a moment. That presence is also sometimes described as like the center of a circle in which there is no perimeter. That every place is the beginning of it, and every place is the end of it. It's the totality of it is all there. So if you have any place in which the allness is, all of it's there. Try that on for Sunday morning. All of it is everywhere. And if you could get what that means, then you get when they say that the Christ presence is within you, the divine presence is within you, that you are not just slightly like God, that presence. You are the expression of it, and the full potential lies within you. It is such a profound idea. Most of us have a hard time really getting it, but the people that I respect in the spirit world say essentially Jesus did get it. He went, look, I'm not the limit. I'm not limited. I am that. And as he would say to his disciples, these things I've done, you will do, and nothing will be beyond you. Nothing will be beyond you. Now, many of us don't feel that, do we? I mean, I think Ram Dass said it best. We were, as babies, enculturated to be somebody. But in that becoming somebody, we were also bracketed to being only somebody. And while our small bodies and minds needed that training to function in society, one of the things it doesn't do very well is prepare you to be all that you could be, in the sense of you could be the active, localized presence, visible in the world. And that is what we would call a Messiah, that person who could embody the whole of it. That's what the whole game is about. To function in society, you become an it, a someone. And to become transcendent, you become all. That's something, all, or nothing. Take your pick how you want to say it. But you're not simply that anymore. And to choose to actively pursue to change your identity is the process of spiritual awakening. To actively try to go from this is who I say I am to that is who I am, that is the quest that Unity has put out for 130 years. Can you understand who you really are is the deepest question of all. Know thyself, the Greeks. What do they mean? I'm sure they mean know this, but know this. If you are the one, I mean, if you were Neo in the Matrix, I mean, come on, this would be wild. And what essentially Neo says at the very end is, I'm going to show them that they do not have limitations. It's a repeat of what Jesus said. You have no limitations in potential, yet we have functionally adopted this as who we are. And it has worked to some degree. Some of us have adopted more useful sense of self. Some of us more difficult, have more problems with who we are, but we've adopted a personality. We think we are that. And if someone asks who you are, you may not say, I'm a body, but you might say, you know, I'm a man, I'm an American, I am X amount of pounds. Usually I don't say that. But, you know, it's this tight little package. When in a deeper exploration, you realize that if God could be everywhere, all of it could be everywhere, it is right there in you. If the first statement that God, all of God is everywhere, then all of God is everywhere as you. And the consciousness that has been bracketed by I am somebody, has the ability to expand beyond that and to reunite and realize who it really is. And if someone does that, we might call them the Messiah. And then the question becomes, how can I do that? Isn't it interesting that I'm going to bet it's true for you, and it won't be true for everybody in the room, but it'll be true enough that won't be stoned for saying it, that you came to the idea, I would like to be more, when you realized the limitation of being that. When something failed, when something didn't feel right, when you were lonely or you're hurt or something didn't go right, that began the quest. And of course it should. Because you've gone, this shell is killing me. I need a new identity. I'm going to look for a better way of being. And so you come over here to look for this. And this idea that you might be the full expression of the divine in a particular place may have been way beyond you thought what you were going for at first. Maybe you just want some relief. But where you could end up is as the awakened one, the one who realized not that you were just better than the worst day of your life, but you were actually amazing, transcendent, beyond the limits that anyone could expect of you, that's who your true potential is. And that would be amazing, wouldn't it? And so you start on this path and you hopefully have taken some steps that get you closer to this point. And today we did a meditation. I want to talk to you about this because one of the critical aspects to get you from here to there, I think, is fearlessness. And, you know, what are we afraid of over here? We're afraid that this will be damaged, that we will hurt, or we will lose, or that something will be taken from us. And there are many things, many times that will be true. You will have pain. You will be abandoned. You'll be ridiculed. You'll be betrayed. You'll lose. Doesn't that sound a lot like Jesus' story? He was betrayed. He was abandoned. He was ridiculed. He was tortured. He had a difficult time. And yet we call him the Christ. And it is our fear that we won't be big enough to handle this. Perhaps that's part of the reason we don't go easily to the depth of who we are. And one of the things that happens, I think, when people get older and the physical body begins to have aches and pains for no good reason. You know, like I said, you know, I can sprain my ankle in bed. is that we begin to disidentify with that, and we go, get used to the pain a bit, so we begin to go, that's not all of who I am, because I can see I have it, but it isn't me. And this Tonglen meditation is a way of practicing that the Buddhists have put out there, which is essentially, do not be afraid of suffering. Let suffering strip you of your identity. Let it take it away. And so in the weird way, sometimes the worst times in your life as somebody become the opening, the crack in the shell that opens up us to who we could be and already are. And this is why we need to be fearless, because we can take the encounter with loss and suffering and ridicule and all those things we never wanted to have happen to us and go, so I'm opening. I'm transcending this because I can have it. It can happen to me, and it is not me. And Tonglen is a beautiful little practice where you sip in suffering into your heart, into that tender place inside your being, and the heart takes it in and it gives out love. The heart converts, because the heart is connected to your spirit in a way that your mind often cannot do. And so the heart is, think of it let's talk about it in physiological terms, or in, maybe this might be a way of saying it. When you're connected to the heart, you're connected with everything that's going on. It's not just what's happening in your head. It's not just your identity. It's not just what you want to have happen. It's not your thinking process. It's just that you're open to everything. And why those people that have open hearts, they are often broken. Because if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of crap going on in the world. People are dying, people are lying, people are having all sorts of things happen. And the heart is the one who can experience it. And sometimes just because it's so much, we will close down our heart by going into our head and start being tight and cheap and unfriendly and self-centered. But when we come back to our heart, we're at one with everything in a way that we cannot be when we're just in our head, where our heart is open and we hurt, because there are many in the world that are hurting. But we also have the beautiful, sweet experience of belonging in this world, of feeling that this is actually us, that we're not separate. And the automatic experience of compassion comes in. And that compassion is costly. Granted, I get it. It can hurt. But it is how we come back toward all versus somebody. So Tonglen practice goes like this. You open your heart to the best of your ability, and then you breathe in the suffering, which is consciously taking it in. I will take in your suffering, or my suffering, depending on the day. Sometimes it's my suffering, because that's where I am. But it allows me to be open to my own situation, even in that. And when I take in yours, I'm open to your situation. Breathe in suffering. Breathe out love. Now the Buddhists start you off, the Tibetan Buddhists start you off this way by breathing in smoke and then breathing out pure clean air. That's never worked for me. But I can understand breathing in suffering. But see, they grew up in a smoky houses in Tibet, so that made sense, but I don't like it. Breathe in suffering, breathe out love. Breathe in suffering, and don't be a hero. I've seen this. Have you done this before when you've done something spiritual and you go, okay, give me your best shot? I recommend you never do that. Because the best shot may be way more than you thought it was. Breathe in a little bit, breathe out love. And it is the diminishment of the ego that the Buddhists say this practice will do. The diminishment of the attachment to your somebodyness. Less attached. I think also fearless. More fearless. I'm not afraid. I got this. Because I'm bigger than the suffering that I'm breathing in. And isn't that who you want to be? Isn't that what Jesus did? He's on the cross. I mean, for Christ's sake, he's on the cross. Father, forgive them. I know they don't know what they do, right? For this I was born. Oh my God, what an attitude. And when he dies, it is complete. I did it. Our fear of suffering, I think, is part of the somebodyness that keeps us from exploding into who we really are. Fear doesn't really go with allness, does it? Transcendence, pure capacity, unimaginable connectivity and love, wisdom. Fear just doesn't fit with that. So let's consider, in more ways than one, but this is one, this process of becoming fearless. By realizing that your heart and all of your being is way more than the circumstances of your life, and way more than your conditioned reality of who you are. That you are something, you are the Messiah, just not there yet. You are the anointed one. You are the one who will transform reality by your being as you become that. That's who you are. This is who you think you are. So go into the being state and let this one have its day. Of course, it's got its place. You know, you probably earned your living with this one. You probably have most of the material things in your life, many of the relationships. So much has come from this, but this is so much less than who you have in potential that maybe we let that one play it out and we awaken to who we really are. And that becomes the game that you're more willing to play than protect myself. It's a big challenge, I know. But after all, if you're going to sprain your ankle in bed, why not go big, right? Okay, let's practice. So the trick is to be able to open your heart. That's part of it. So if you've been thinking a lot and protecting a lot, let's start with the heart. Let the heart open. Let the breath be in the heart. You'll feel it in your chest as it opens. It doesn't have to play small anymore. Let the heart open. Let us explore what it is to be the allness, to be connected. So now the heart is open, and take a few breaths of purifying breaths inside the heart so the heart may be ready. And then when you're ready, begin to slowly and in a small way sip in suffering. let the heart work up to big sips. Just take a baby step. Breathe in some suffering, yours or someone else's. And breathe out love. Breathe in suffering and breathe out love. This is what you do until the Messiah comes, as you. Fearless. Now let's stop breathing in suffering and just simply breathe in and breathe out into the heart, letting the heart cleanse the last of it. Convert anything that's left over. And just return to an open-hearted place. And for a moment, contemplate what it would be like when you realize that you are the same essence as Jesus was, same essence as God, the allness in this place. And let it be. Amen.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.